I was curled up on a cold bathroom floor, barely breathing, ribs shattered, when I heard my mother whisper through the door, "You need to stay quiet, you'll ruin his life." She wasn't talking about the man who hurt me. She was talking about my brother. And in that moment, through the pain, through the silence I had obeyed my whole life, I realized I didn't have a family. I had a jury, and they had already picked a side. But one person did see me, a stranger in blue scrubs, and she made one phone call that changed everything. My name is Lena Whitmore, and for most of my life, I believed that if I was quiet enough, good enough, helpful enough, someone in my family would finally notice me. I was the dependable one, the cleanup crew, the invisible thread that held the house together while no one looked. After my breakup last fall, I moved back to Ashton Creek, told people it was just to save money for a down payment. But deep down, I think I was still chasing a home I'd never truly had. Our family house was a modest two-story in the suburbs, white siding, green shutters, and a porch swing that creaked louder than the love inside. Living there felt like being a ghost in a trophy room. Because that house, it didn't belong to me, it belonged to Brady. My younger brother, the golden boy, the hometown football star with $1 million arm and $1 million temper. Mom and Dad, Nancy and Richard, worshipped him like he was the second coming of something sacred. His jerseys hung framed on the wall, his newspaper clippings covered the fridge. They called him our legacy. And me, I was just Lena. If Brady needed protein shakes, Mom stocked the fridge. If I needed toothpaste, I had to add it to the grocery list twice. Dad talked about his game stats like scripture. I talked about the kids in my classroom, and no one listened. That Saturday night was supposed to be just another night of me fading into the wallpaper. Brady had a big game, scouts were watching, the pressure was high, and he lost. I heard the front door slam just after 10. The air shifted. It always did when Brady was angry. I was in the kitchen, scrubbing dishes by hand. The dishwasher was broken, again, but no one asked him to fix it. He walked in, smelling like sweat, beer, and failure. He didn't say hello. He threw his gym bag on the floor so hard it echoed. His jaw was tight, eyes dark. "What are you staring at?" he snapped. I didn't even know I was looking at him. "Nothing," I said quickly, "just finishing up." He yanked the fridge open, grabbed a beer, slammed it shut like it had insulted him. "This whole damn season is a joke," he muttered. And for some reason, maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe it was hope, I tried to say something kind. "It's just one game, Brady," I offered gently. "You'll bounce back, you always do." I even smiled, small, soft, meek. But that smile was the spark that lit the explosion. His eyes went black, his lips twisted. "What did you say?" he hissed. I barely got out the word nothing before he was in front of me. He grabbed the front of my shirt, knuckles like stone against my collarbone, and shoved me backwards. I hit the granite countertop with a crack. The breath flew out of my lungs like a balloon popped midair. Pain bloomed in my side, sharp and immediate. I collapsed to the floor, my cheek against the cold tile, vision going dark at the edges. I didn't even scream, I couldn't. Then came the kick. Hard, precise, right where I'd hit the counter. I heard it more than I felt it, this deep, sickening crunch that echoed in my ribs and my soul. And then nothing. Darkness swallowed me. That was the night I stopped being the good daughter. That was the night I realized silence doesn't protect you. It only delays the moment when everything breaks. And for me, that moment had arrived. I came to on the bathroom floor, gasping. Each breath felt like fire licking through my ribs. Pain radiated from my side in waves, raw, blistering, and alive. I tasted blood. I couldn't tell if it was from my lip or my lungs. The world around me was dim, but I knew where I was. The cold tile, the humming light above the mirror, the door I'd somehow crawled behind and locked. And then I heard it. My mother's voice, muffled but sharp through the wood. "Lena, you have to stay quiet, do you understand? You'll ruin everything for him." Everything. That was the word she used. Not "you're hurt," not "we need to get you help," just "don't ruin it." I tried to answer, but all I could do was wheeze. My chest wouldn't lift the way it was supposed to. My ribs, something was wrong, deeply wrong. I heard her again, this time more frantic, closer. "Your dad's coming down, pull it together, just say you tripped." Her voice trembled, not with concern, but with fear, and not fear for me. She wasn't afraid of what had just happened. She was afraid of what would happen to Brady. Footsteps, heavy ones, Dad's voice now, low, stern, emotionless. "Where is she?" "In the bathroom," Mom answered quickly. "She's shaken up, but she knows what to say." What to say? They weren't asking me what happened. They were assigning me a script. I closed my eyes. I tried to disappear again, like I'd done all my life. But pain doesn't let you hide. It drags you back. And it was dragging me now. Eventually, they stopped talking. Brady went upstairs. I heard the thud of his door slamming shut. And then, silence. Not peaceful silence, not healing silence, but the kind of silence that rings after betrayal. Then came the last twist of the knife. My mom's voice, quiet but crystal clear through the door. You need to keep quiet, Lena. You have to. If you say anything, you'll destroy his chances. That was the moment something inside me cracked louder than my ribs. She didn't ask me what I needed, didn't ask if I could walk, if I could breathe. She asked me to lie. Again. For the millionth time. The next morning, I couldn't stand up straight. I winced with every breath. Dad stood in the doorway with the same stone-cold expression he wore at Brady's games, when things weren't going right. Get dressed, he said. We're going to urgent care. In the car, the silence was suffocating. He didn't look at me, not once. Just stared straight ahead at the road like it had wronged him. Halfway there, he spoke. You fell down the stairs. That's the story. That's what you'll tell the doctor. I looked at the window beside me, at the trees passing by in a blur, and whispered, okay. I didn't recognize my own voice. It sounded like someone who had given up. And maybe I had. At the clinic, I sat under fluorescent lights that made my head throb. A nurse asked what happened. I repeated the line flatly. I fell down the stairs. The lie scratched my throat on the way out. I thought that would be the end of it. But then the door opened, and in walked someone who would change everything. A woman in blue scrubs, calm eyes, and a name tag that read, Dr. Joanna Hale. She looked at me, really looked, and said gently, Let's take a look at you. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt something strange. Not fear, not shame, but the faintest flicker of being seen. And that would make all the difference. Dr. Joanna Hale didn't rush. She sat beside me like time wasn't a threat, like my pain deserved a pause. Her touch was light, but the moment her fingers brushed the right side of my ribcage, I gasped, loud, sharp, involuntary. She didn't flinch, didn't scold me, didn't look annoyed like my parents always did when I showed discomfort. She just said gently, Let's get some x-rays, Lena. I want to understand what's going on. There was something in her voice, steady, kind, human. It unnerved me more than it comforted me. I wasn't used to being handled with care. The imaging room was cold. I held my breath while the technician adjusted the panels. I could feel my bones screaming beneath my skin. Afterwards, I was brought back to the exam room, alone, waiting. The door opened again. Dr. Hale returned with the x-rays in hand. She placed the images on the light board, and there it was, my truth in black and white. 3 ribs, 1 fractured, 2 fully broken. Lines like lightning bolts across my skeleton. She didn't look at me right away. She just stared at the images as if memorizing them. Then she turned and sat again, her voice low and careful. Lena, injuries like this don't come from a fall down the stairs. I felt the room close in around me, felt every wall grow teeth. The bruising pattern, the force required, the angles, none of it adds up. I'm not accusing, I'm just asking. She leaned forward, not as a doctor this time, but as someone who saw something and refused to look away. Did someone do this to you? My mouth opened, nothing came out. I thought about my father pacing in the waiting room, his foot tapping, his silence louder than any scream. I thought about my mother rehearsing the lie in her head, the desperate way she whispered, You'll ruin everything. And I thought about Brady, the look in his eyes before he kicked me, the sound of my body against the counter, the moment I stopped existing and became just collateral. My throat tightened, my heart pounded so hard I felt it in my jaw. I can't, I said, barely audible. Dr. Hale didn't push. She simply nodded and said, okay. Then she rolled her chair closer. Her tone changed, not softer but stronger. Lena, I'm a mandated reporter. If I believe a crime has occurred, especially one involving violence in the home, I am legally required to act. This isn't about drama. This is about your safety. She paused. So I'm going to ask again, and I want you to know, I see you, I believe you. You don't have to protect anyone anymore. I looked up at the x-ray, my body betrayed by the bones I'd carried so loyally. And something in me cracked, deeper than the fractures in my ribs. Tears I didn't know I was holding finally broke free. I swallowed hard and whispered. It was my brother, Brady. The words hung in the air like they didn't belong to me, like I'd stolen them from a stronger version of myself. Immediately the panic rushed in. No, please, please don't tell anyone. You don't understand, I cried, the words tumbling out. It'll ruin his shot. He's worked so hard. My parents will never forgive me. Dr. Hale looked me dead in the eye. And with a voice like steel wrapped in velvet, she said, He broke your ribs, Lena. You didn't ruin anything. He did. She stood up and took a breath. This is no longer your burden to carry. It never should have been. And just like that, the choice wasn't mine anymore. She picked up the phone. She made the call. And for the first time in my life, someone chose me over him. By the time Dad and I pulled back into the driveway, the world had changed. The white clapboard house looked the same, perfect lawn, porch swing swaying in the breeze, but everything inside it was already burning. A police cruiser was parked at the curb. Its lights weren't flashing, but the presence alone sent my father into a quiet fury. His jaw locked. His knuckles went white around the steering wheel. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. I didn't answer. I was too busy holding my ribs together with one arm and what was left of my dignity with the other. We walked inside. The first thing I saw was Brady, standing at the bottom of the stairs, red-faced, fuming, surrounded by two uniformed officers. Mom was crying, not for me, for him. "She's confused," she was saying, her voice cracking. "She must have hit her head. You don't understand. He's not like this. He's under pressure. The scouts are watching." One of the officers cut her off gently but firmly. "Ma'am, we're just asking questions, that's all." When Brady saw me, he didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't look scared. He looked betrayed. Like I had hit him. "You really did this?" he said under his breath, low enough only I could hear. "After everything I've done for this family?" It was almost funny. Everything he had done, I should have laughed. But I didn't. Because I was still bracing for what I knew was coming next. Mom turned to me. Her face, once soft, once loving, was unrecognizable. Pure venom. "What did you do, Lena?" she hissed. "You're tearing this family apart." And then Dad, his voice quiet, cold. "I told you to keep your mouth shut." His hand clamped around my upper arm, tight, controlling. "You just destroyed your brother's future. I hope you're happy." But I wasn't listening anymore. Something had shifted inside me. A gear I didn't know existed had clicked into place. While they screamed about his future, his pain, his dreams, I was already moving. Past the yelling, past the stares, past the shame they tried to stitch back onto me. I walked to my room. I pulled out the suitcase I'd never fully unpacked, because some part of me always knew this day would come. I folded clothes with broken ribs and a steady hand. They didn't follow me. They didn't offer help. They didn't say don't go, because I was never really theirs to keep. The first few nights in my new place felt like floating through fog. The shelter coordinator, Maria, found me a studio apartment on the edge of town. It was small, sparse, a single mattress on the floor, a chipped dresser, a bathroom that echoed. But it was mine. No footsteps stomping overhead, no eyes judging me at dinner, no whispers through bathroom doors. Just quiet, real quiet. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a prison. It felt like peace. Dr. Hale kept checking in. She gave me a number for a pro bono lawyer, Nora Bennett, a former prosecutor who now specialized in domestic violence cases. Nora was fierce, calm, the kind of woman who made you feel braver just by standing next to her. We filed a restraining order against Brady. The paperwork shook in my hands as I signed it, but it was the most liberating thing I had ever done. My family didn't go quietly. Voicemails poured in. Mom weeping, Dad raging, Brady, silent, then suddenly sorry. A text that read, "We're still family. Let's fix this before it gets worse." I blocked every number, one by one. Not out of spite, not out of vengeance, but because my silence was no longer submission. It was a boundary. It was protection. It was freedom. Healing didn't happen all at once. It was slow, uneven, like learning to walk again after forgetting what it felt like to stand tall. At first, I slept on a mattress on the floor. I woke up drenched in sweat from dreams where Brady was still yelling, still charging toward me. I kept a chair against the front door at night, even though the locks worked just fine. But day by day, the fog began to lift. I bought a lamp with warm light. I hung up pictures, just silly ones, postcards and flowers drawn by my students. I got a plant, a fern. I named her Winnie. She was the first thing I had to care for that wouldn't scream back. Therapy helped too. I found a counselor through the women's shelter. Her name was Tasha. She wore oversized sweaters and never once asked, "Why didn't you leave sooner?" Instead, she said, "You don't owe anyone survival on their timeline." That one sentence stayed with me. We didn't just talk about the broken ribs. We talked about growing up in a house where silence was currency, where being invisible was the safest way to be loved or tolerated. I cried more in those sessions than I had in years. But slowly the shame started to peel away. Beneath it, there was something unexpected, something almost like anger, but not at myself, at them. And that anger became a spark. One afternoon, I was sitting in the teacher's lounge after class, scrolling through local community grants for educators. There it was, small font, plain page, support available for new initiatives serving at-risk youth. Something clicked. My mind flashed to one of my students, Kira, age 10, bright eyes but flinched whenever someone raised their voice. Or Janelle, who wore the same hoodie for a month straight and never spoke above a whisper. I remembered being those girls, not seen, not heard, only noticed when something broke. What if I could build something for them? Not a classroom, not a shelter, but a space. A place where girls could come after school and just be. Be angry, be loud, be messy, be real. A place where no one told them to smile or sit smaller or keep quiet. I called the idea, Rise Quietly. Not because silence was weakness, but because it could be power, if it was yours to choose. I poured everything into that grant proposal, late nights, shaky hands, tears falling onto the keyboard as I wrote. This program was born from the silence I was forced into and the voice I fought to reclaim. 2 months later, the letter came. We got it. 12,000, enough to launch. I rented a room at the local community center on Wednesdays and Fridays, bought beanbags, journals, snacks, hung up twinkle lights, because God knows every girl deserves a little softness in her life. And they came. 5 girls at first, then 8, then 12. They painted. They wrote letters they'd never send. They sat in circles and told the truth out loud for the first time. One day, Kira, quiet Kira, stood up in the middle of group time and said, "When I grow up, I want to help girls like us." And just like that, the pain was worth something. Not erased, not forgotten, but transformed. I wasn't trying to be anyone's savior. I wasn't trying to prove anything to my family or the world. I just wanted girls to know what no one ever told me. You are not too much. You are not too loud. And you do not have to shrink to survive. The community center auditorium smelled like fresh paint and folding chairs. We'd spent all morning decorating for the fundraiser, string lights across the back wall, paper lanterns swaying slightly in the AC. The girls made a banner themselves. Rise quietly, because every voice matters. They spelled quietly wrong, but I didn't fix it. It felt right in their handwriting. Parents, volunteers, social workers, even the mayor's assistant, all packed into the little room. It wasn't a gala, but it felt huge. I stood behind the podium, hands steady for once, not shaking. I spoke about what we'd built, how the girls were showing up every week, how Kira wrote a poem that made 3 staff members cry. I shared a little about my own past, carefully, respectfully, just enough to hint at where this began. Then the back door slammed open. Loud. Too loud. A voice cut through the room like a blade. "You." I froze. Everyone turned. There he was. Brady. Thinner than I remembered, gaunt, eyes hollow but still filled with that familiar fire, rage dressed up as wounded pride. He looked straight at me and pointed. "You ruined my life." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone stood to intervene, but I raised a hand. Not yet. Brady stepped into the aisle, voice rising. "All because of one mistake, one fall. You had to make it a federal case. You had to drag the whole family down with you." I looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel scared. I didn't shrink. I stepped out from behind the podium, walked down the steps slowly, stood dead center in the aisle, between Brady and everyone watching. I met his eyes. Then I turned to the audience, parents, teachers, donors, and most of all, my girls. Their eyes wide, waiting. And I spoke. Clear, calm, unshaken. "This is the man who broke my ribs." Gasps, silence. You could feel the oxygen leave the room. "And this is the family who told me to stay quiet." No one moved, no one coughed, even Brady stopped breathing. That silence? It was louder than any scream he could have thrown at me. It was truth. Security came gently from the back. A woman placed a hand on Brady's arm. He resisted, just for a moment. But even he knew this wasn't his stage anymore. He let them escort him out, still muttering, still angry, but smaller now. So much smaller. I walked back to the podium without rushing. No one clapped. Not out of disrespect, but because something sacred had just happened. Something true. Later that night, while we cleaned up, Kira came up behind me, tugged my sleeve. "You were brave," she whispered. I smiled. "So are you," I whispered back. I never saw Brady again after that. Never returned a call, never looked back. And no, my parents never apologized. But I didn't need them to. They didn't lose a daughter. They let one go. And I found something better than their approval. I found my voice. I used to think silence was safety. Now I know. Silence when chosen is strength, but when broken, it's power. If you've ever been told to stay quiet when someone hurt you, this is your sign. Don't shrink. Don't carry their shame. Speak. Because your voice just might save someone else. Years ago, if you had told me that one day I would stand in front of a room full of people and say, "He broke my ribs," I would have laughed, or cried, or maybe just said nothing, like I always did. But silence doesn't protect you, it protects them. The ones who hurt you, the ones who tell you to smile, to forgive, to make it easier for them to sleep at night. The day I spoke up wasn't the day I broke my family. It was the day I stopped breaking myself. I didn't get revenge by shouting louder. I got it by living free, by helping girls like me rise quietly, on their own terms. So if you've ever felt like shrinking to survive, let this be your sign. Don't. Stand up, even if your voice shakes, especially if your voice shakes. Because your story deserves to be heard, and your ending, it doesn't have to be quiet anymore. If this story stayed with you, helped you, or reminded you of your own strength, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs it. We rise louder when we rise together.